Well, last night was a doozy. Syracuse basketball won their exhibition game against Pace, but even their own head coach called out the team for a lack of effort. But what did you guys have to say about the game? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. Thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, we are reacting to your takes following Syracuse's exhibition victory over Pace last night, 75-57, if you really want to call it a victory for Syracuse, even though they clearly showed a lack of effort for the majority of the game, and you all had a lot to say about it, so let's get right to it. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. This first comment right here that I'm about to display to you all perfectly encapsulates the point that I was trying to make last night in the mini podcast. And don't worry, we're going to go over both perspectives. Okay, we'll get to some comments about people saying I'm overreacting and that this was just an exhibition game and you really don't have much to worry about. But I'm going to start off here with Dan, who commented, "This kind of pathetic effort would not be acceptable at Duke or UConn. That's why Syracuse basketball is second tier. Coach Red doesn't have it. We may have talent, but you still have to coach them." Out of all the comments that we received here on Locked On Syracuse following last night's exhibition game, Dan, you win best comment. Not even particularly close. So congratulations, Dan, on winning because you get it. Those are programs with actual standards. Did you check out Duke's exhibition games? I think the first one was against UCF. The second one was, I believe, on the road against Tennessee. Did you check out Cameron Boozer, five-star freshman, how much effort he played with? How much passion he played with? Got over 20 rebounds. He looked like in that game, he looked like he was playing like it was the Final Four. But it was an exhibition game that didn't count. As far as UConn is concerned, I took a screenshot of Dan Hurley, and I'm about to display it for you all right now here on YouTube. And don't worry, I can describe it for people that are listening on audio platforms. Here is Dan Hurley, the head coach of UConn, yelling at his team in the second half of an exhibition game against Michigan State when UConn was winning by 16 points at the time. We may not be as talented as Duke. We may not be as talented as a team like UConn. But those are programs beyond just the talent that actually get it, that actually understand that when they take the floor, there's a standard. And the standard is, at bare minimum, exhibition game, regular season game, conference tournament, NCAA tournament, Final Four national championship, you are going to give your 100% effort. And if you don't give your 100% effort, if you give 99%, you make the head coach's job very, very easy. You simply won't play. If you give 99%, you give 100% when you are on the court. So congratulations, Dan, because you get it. And you understood exactly where I was coming from last night. You win comment of the week. And because you win comment of the week, you got to bat leadoff in this week's edition, or I should say in this edition of the Fan Takes podcast. Let's get to another one. This one is from Darrell right here, and it's a different perspective. And that's okay. I'm all about different perspectives here on Locked On Syracuse. Man, I've been a Cuse fan for over 40 years. This is a practice game. When we play an actual game that counts and play like this, that's when I will care. This rant is pointless. Respectfully, Darrell, think you missed the point of last night's rant. The point of last night's rant was not to get you all to care about Syracuse basketball. As I articulated last night, it makes no difference whether or not you care about Syracuse basketball. It really doesn't. What matters is the players and the coaches that are actually in the program. People within the program have to care and give their 100% whenever they are on the floor. I just went over Duke giving it all in an exhibition game, both of their exhibition games. UConn getting yelled at by their head coach when they are winning by double digits against Michigan State in an exhibition game. Because those are programs that hold people accountable. Those are programs with standards. So we can sit here and say last night was only an exhibition. And you are right, Darrell. It was only an exhibition. And I pointed out last night how Syracuse basketball in 2009 actually lost an exhibition to Lemoyne. They lost an exhibition. But you want to know the difference, though? A, that team was coached by Jim Boeheim. And B, the year before, Syracuse basketball was actually, really good. And they had a standard of excellence within the program. This program right now does not have a standard of excellence. They do not deserve the benefit of the doubt. If they go out there and they don't give their max effort, what do you think is going to happen when the games actually count? And you want to know what they say, Darrell, about practice. You practice how you play. You're supposed to give 100% effort in practice. Because in a game, you would figure, in a game that actually counts, you would also give your 100% max effort. And by the way, Darrell, Adrian Autry, head coach of Syracuse, he pointed it out post-game, albeit in a much nicer fashion than I did. He led off the press conference by talking about how his team lacked effort, his team lacked intensity, and he also said, quote, that his team got punked by Pace. Pace is a Division II team. They're Division II. They out-rebounded Syracuse. A Division II team out-rebounded Syracuse. What's the excuse for that? That comes down to effort. That comes down to will to win. Is it not? Does Pace have more size? Does Pace have more talent? Absolutely not. But if Pace did have more size and they did have more talent, if that was a Division I team, they would have beaten Syracuse. Yeah, the better team eventually won because they're Division I and they're supposed to win. My problem was not how they played. It's the fact, Darrell, that this team did not show effort. And that is the bare minimum expectation, whether it is a practice game, whether it is an actual game that counts, whether it's ACC tournament or it's the Final Four, I don't care. The bare minimum is that when you take the court, you are giving your 100% max effort. And Syracuse basketball, for the majority of the game against Pace, they did not do that. And hopefully the lesson for Monday when they play Binghamton, and we'll get to a comment about Binghamton coming up here, is that they actually care. They come out with intensity. They come out with focus. They come out with energy. They come out with passion. They come out with an actual attitude of wanting to be there because they've earned the right to be there. So play like it. Act like it. That's all I'm asking. But Darrell, I appreciate your comment. I really do. I hope you can understand where I am coming from now that I pointed it out here again on Locked On Syracuse. And don't worry, we still got plenty more reactions or plenty more takes to get to. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Locked on Syracuse, I'm Jackson Holzer. Let's continue reacting to your takes following Syracuse's 75-57 victory over Pace in an exhibition game last night. And this one is coming from Jimmy right here. Let's get right to it. Binghamton is going to be a battle with a fire emoji at the very end. Look, Jimmy, I hope you're wrong. I hope that it's not a battle. Binghamton, if you look at KenPom preseason, they're rated 323. That's, I believe, right around where Buffalo is rated. And Syracuse, of course, played Buffalo in an exhibition game last week. I hope you're right. I really do. All right, excuse me, I hope you're wrong. That should not be a battle. Syracuse is a top 70 team in KenPom. Buffalo 323. What does that tell you? Oh, by the way, Syracuse is at home too. And it's the season opener. Shouldn't be a close game. And you know what, Jimmy? Here's the deal. If Syracuse, for a full 40 minutes, plays with maximum intensity and maximum effort, even with the fact that there's going to be growing pains and there's going to be times where there have miscommunications and all that stuff, I get it. But if they give their 110% max, if they show that they care and they show that they have full effort, they should beat Binghamton by 20 plus. And oh, by the way, Jimmy, if you want to make the tournament, which that's the one thing I think every Syracuse fan can agree on right now, is we all want to see this team back in March Madness, something they haven't done in 4 years. Don't let it be a battle. It really can't. These games matter. Syracuse basketball, most likely, and I hope I'm wrong on this, most likely they're not going to win 25, 26, even more regular season games to the point where their point differential against bad teams is really not going to matter when it comes down to Selection Sunday, even though it would still matter when you're determining the seeding within March Madness, whether you're a 3 seed, 5 seed, 7 seed, all that stuff is still taken into account. But you'll safely be in the tournament if you win enough games, even if every game you win is by 1 point. But chances are, if Syracuse were to reach its maximum potential, they are still likely going to be on the bubble this year. That's if they reach their maximum potential, Jimmy. They'll be on the bubble. So how do you separate yourself with a dozen other teams that are also on the bubble? Well, you look at the advanced metrics and you say, okay, where are you at in the net? Where are you at in KenPom? Where are you at in this? Where are you at in that? All those fun gizmos that predict who the best teams are and who the worst teams are, all that fun stuff, right? And one of the big things that's taken into account is your point differential. Who you play, where did you actually play, and how much or how little did you beat that team by, and how much did you lose to by that team? It's kind of funny because let's say Syracuse goes on the road to Duke this year, and let's say they lose that game by 5 points. That's actually more beneficial than Syracuse in the season opener beating Binghamton by the same margin. Because Binghamton's not supposed to be good. They're 323. But Duke is supposed to be really good. So a loss there, very close, actually helps them in a weird way. It's a weird system, but that's the system that we have. So, Jimmy, I hope you're wrong. Binghamton better not be a battle on Monday. That should be a 20-point Syracuse victory, and we're all feeling happy and ready to go for this Syracuse basketball season. And guess what? If they play with maximum effort for 40-plus minutes, actually not 40-plus, it should only be 40. If they play with full effort for 40 minutes, they should blow the doors off Binghamton. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's get to this next comment here from Patrick. Another one who was taking the opposite approach of me from last night, and that's okay. LMAO, man, it's an exhibition game, and they won by almost 20 points. Last year's team loses both these games. Y'all overreacting. Again, Patrick, you are allowed to have that mentality. You're allowed to have the mentality of it's only preseason. It's an exhibition. It doesn't matter. It doesn't count. And technically speaking, you're not wrong. It's not like Syracuse is going to drop in any preseason ranking because I don't believe that exhibition games are counted towards it. So you're not entirely wrong about these games not mattering objectively, right? But this team cannot have that mentality. They can't be complacent. They can't be building up these habits right now. You really can't. Syracuse is not a good enough team to where they can just walk on the floor and win. They don't have to really give their max effort. They don't have to really care. They just have to show up, go through the motions, and they'll win. They're not good enough. They're not. We can sit here and say, hey, they have more talent than last year. They have more talent than this year's team or than prior teams. Sure, I'll listen to those arguments, but they are still not good enough as a team to where they can just simply get away with not showing their maximum effort. And that's why last night, Patrick, was ultimately concerning. I can live with being rusty in an exhibition game. Notice how I haven't really mentioned much of the game and the fact that they did not shoot free throws well. I can live with being rusty. I can live with the fact if they're getting a bunch of open looks and they're just missing them. I understand it. I get it. What I cannot accept is lack of effort. And the fact that their head coach, as I alluded to already, in a much nicer fashion, called them out on their lack of effort, that's concerning to me. How is this team, with the track record they've had in recent years, going to go out there and pretend like it's okay? They need to hold themselves to a higher standard. It's one thing for us to sit here and talk about the standard of Syracuse basketball, whether or not we care, whether or not they don't. They're supposed to care every single time they take the floor. And that's what got me going last night. And it's why even sleeping on it and giving it many of hours of reflection and many hours of preparation going into this, that I really don't seem like I've backed off from it. They are not good enough as a team to win. They could just lollygag on the floor, not really care, go through the motions and win. Because if that was a Division I team last night, they would have lost that game. They would have lost that game to the worst Division I team out there if they displayed that kind of effort. Effort. I've said that word maybe 100 times already in this podcast. So I'm sorry, Patrick. Respectfully disagree. Now, coming up, we'll continue reacting to your comments following Syracuse's exhibition game against Pace last night. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. And like our Syracuse football players, we sweat every detail. Because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Let's continue reacting to your comments following Syracuse's exhibition game against Pace last night. And let's go to this comment from Samuel. Samuel says, that failure to play is a serious coaching failure. Bench those that are not intense. Play those interested in playing at a high caliber. Fix that failure now. That was a total coaching failure. Samuel, I'm not going to sit here and disagree with you. In fact, I'm actually going to add to your point. I think this goes beyond the coaching. You would think that it's only on the coaches to hold the players accountable, to get the players going. But when the coaches are not held accountable, and there's a level of complacency, it seems like, within this program right now, how can I only really get on the coaches? How can I only really get on the players? When you're a program like Syracuse basketball and you are coming off by win-loss percentage, your worst season since 1969, you would think that there would be repercussions for that. The team last year did not perform. And yet not a single coach from last year in the offseason was let go. Not one. In fact, Syracuse, the higher ups, they put all of the blame on the players and the NIL. And of course, those were contributing factors to last year. Don't get me wrong. We went over it in excruciating detail last year, all the problems with Syracuse basketball. But the one thing that the higher ups at Syracuse just did not seem to account for is the coaching. And so if the higher ups at Syracuse are going to hold nobody responsible on this coaching staff for what happened last season, are you really all that surprised that the team can still display a lack of effort on the court when, by the way, they're facing a make or break year, which leads me to think, are they really facing a make or break year? Are they? Is that what they've been told? Is that okay? It goes back to what I said earlier in this podcast. Look at how Duke treats preseason games. Look at how Dan Hurley at UConn is treating preseason games. Why can't we do the same thing here at Syracuse? Why is it that this program just does not have the same standard like it used to? And it's so sad. This is one of historically the all-time great basketball programs in the nation. Historically. But when you don't have accountability at the very top, not one coach let go from the worst season since 1969, this is what you're sometimes going to get. So I can't only put this on the coaches. I can't only put a lack of effort on the players. No. I put it on the higher ups too. It's one thing to say, we want to give Adrian Autry another year. Fine. We did a 5 Stages of Grief podcast on this episode. Even though I disagreed with it, I had to accept it. Okay, they're going to bring him back. But you had to bring back the entire coaching staff as well? You know, it's funny because my baseball team, for those that care, is the New York Mets. The New York Mets underachieved this season. They underachieved significantly. They brought back their general manager or president of baseball operations in David Stearns. They even brought back their manager in Carlos Mendoza, even though a lot of people wanted him fired for what happened last year. They let go of basically their entire coaching staff, though. All of the coaches around Carlos Mendoza, the manager, fired or let go or told to move on. Because at least that organization is saying, okay, maybe we don't want to get rid of everyone. We don't want to strip it down and get rid of all the leadership here. But we need to change the voices within the room. And Syracuse basketball did the complete opposite. They didn't change a single coach from last year. Not one, unless I'm mistaken. Maybe I am. Feel free to comment in the comment section below. Jackson, you're wrong. I have a very credible report from Syracuse.com or wherever that Syracuse let go of this coach and they brought in this coach instead. But they didn't. In fact, they invested more into the program. That's like looking at a stock in the stock market and it's tanking. And instead of abandoning ship, you put in more money. You better be right, or you're just going to lose more money on it. But in the case of Syracuse, they're going to make more money no matter what. I mean, after all, you know, they have crazy attendance every single year. So why care that much about the product on the floor? So Samuel, it's not just on the coaches, even though I agree with you. It's on the higher ups. They did nothing with the coaching staff at the end of last year. So I can't just hold this on the coaches. They made their bed. This is what they get for it. And hopefully last night was a learning lesson for Syracuse basketball to give a you-know-what next time they take the floor. Because the next time they take the floor, Samuel, the game is going to count. That's on Monday against Binghamton. It's Thursday at the time of this recording. Figure it out fast. Figure it out how to get yourself motivated for this upcoming season. Final comment here, and this one requires some backstory to it. It's from Huskies Are Better. It's a UConn fan account, I guess. And excuse me, I can't really talk right now, I guess, but he or she said to me, "You're right. It couldn't be. Cuse would be down 15. Backstory, real quick. Okay, because this one requires a backstory. I quote tweeted on the Locked On Syracuse Twitter account at @LO_Syracuse. Dan Hurley ranting at his players in the exhibition game against Michigan State when his team was up 16 points in the second half. And I said, quote, up 16 in an exhibition against Michigan State couldn't be us. And the point of that quote tweet was that Dan Hurley, the head coach of UConn, was clearly holding his players accountable. And his team was winning by 16. Love him or hate him, Dan Hurley gets results. He's a great basketball coach. He's won 2 national championships very recently, back-to-back national titles. First program to win back-to-back national titles since the University of Florida in the mid-2000s. A team that last year was in the NCAA tournament, fell short, I believe in the round of 32, to the Florida Gators, and that was considered by them a failure of a season because that's the UConn Huskies. And so when I made that quote tweet about how it couldn't be us and how our coach and our program can't hold anyone accountable in a game that they were actually losing against a Division II team in an exhibition, this UConn fan replied, "You're right. It couldn't be you. Cuse would be down 15. And I promptly replied at that point that UConn fan was being really generous. That UConn fan was being really nice. Because if Syracuse displays that level of effort, that lack of intensity, that lack of will to win, but really the lack of will to care about what you're doing, you're going to lose by 25 to any Division I team that is out there. If that was Syracuse against Michigan State and they displayed that level of effort, they'd be down 25 at that point, not up 16. So yeah, I'm still angry. I'm still upset because I want this program to get better. Me ranting about it, I know it doesn't change anything. I'm not affiliated with the university. Yeah, I went there and I graduated there, but at the end of the day, what gets me really going is that, and I replied to someone else with this, what gets me really going the most is when I sense that I care more about the game than the people on the floor. And I know it shouldn't be that way, but when there is that tiny little sense that that is the case, that is the number one way to set me off. I can deal with winning, I can deal with losing, I can deal with a poor performance, I can even sometimes deal with playing down to competition. What I cannot accept under any circumstance is a lack of effort, a lack of give a you-know-what. And so I'll repeat myself for the billionth time on this podcast. The next game counts. They better figure it out. They better get ready, get motivated, because hopefully you're entering a season that is make or break. Thank you all so much for interacting on the podcast last night and on Twitter at @LO_Syracuse. Truly means a ton to get to all your comments, skimming through all of them. If I did not react to your comment, I apologize. Hopefully for the next game, I will be reacting to your comment. And speaking of which, Syracuse football has a game tomorrow night. They are playing North Carolina at home at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Happy Halloween, everyone. Hopefully it is an exciting game and not a spooky game. There will be a full post-game reaction podcast to it. And then on Saturday, there will likely be a fan reaction show as well. So, folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse. I'll see you all again soon.